right, good afternoon. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to our next session on Women in Tech at Atlassian. For those of you who may not have met me yet because we're hiring like crazy, I'm Grace Francisco, Head of Developer Advocacy for Developer Tools. Really pleased to see people streaming in for this session. We have an awesome speaker today, Karen Catlin.
Catlin, that's okay.
And Karen Catlin is a huge advocate for women in tech. She actually goes and consults with tech companies and advising them and coaching them in terms of their gender diversity initiatives, which I think is fantastic. So she's spreading the love and making sure that a variety of different tech companies are actually getting a lot of mentoring around this issue that we have in tech. She has been a leadership coach. She has also been a VP for Adobe Systems, where she was leading shared services department under the office of the CTO. She is a frequent speaker for Women in Tech and Women conferences. She's had a lot of published articles for places like Inc., Fast Company, Daily Beast, Women 2.0, Femgineer, and other leadership sites. And I'm just super happy that she's here. I actually met Karen through Glassbreakers, which if you're not familiar, Glassbreakers is a startup that has a SaaS offering that uses LinkedIn to help to match you with other potential mentors as a peer mentoring system. And this is how I met Karen, and as soon as I met her, I thought, oh, Adobe, okay, great. And small world, we know a lot of people in common.
We sure do, yes.
So please help me in welcoming Karen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Grace, and it's great to be here. And Scott, who's also here, and he and I have worked together for many years at Adobe and Macromedia, so it's nice to see another friendly face out there. So today what we're going to do is I'm going to show my TEDx talk, and then we're going to do a Q&A. And the TEDx talk is something I gave about a year ago, and I was invited to give it. It was hosted at the College of William and Mary. And how many people know about the difference between TED and TEDx talks? If not, a few people. Okay, and some people are saying no, so I'll explain that briefly. So TED is the big stage, it's the big event, and there are a couple of those a year that are hosted by the official TED organization. And then TEDx events are independently organized by people who want to have an event like that at their facility, at their company, at their school, whatever it might be. And it's like a franchise, so they basically are licensing the TED moniker and the format, and they have to do certain things. They have to have a theme. They have to show 2 TED Talks during their in-between speakers. They have to keep to a format of 17 minutes or less for each speaker. And then and they have to have 3 cameras in certain places to be professionally videotaping the talks and then providing them to the TED organization that uploads them into YouTube. So it was sort of interesting seeing the insight of how these are run. It was all student run, which is amazing. And the theme that they chose for this TEDx that I participated in was the word forward. Basically, what are the forces shaping our future as we look forward? And so they had a variety of different speakers. This wasn't about women in tech at all. It was just that, of course, is the lens through which I thought of looking forward and the forces shaping our future. And what I decided to focus on was that women are actually a missing force from shaping our future and the future of technology. And so I'm going to play my talk now. It's about 17 minutes, and then we're just going to have a Q&A around this. So take notes of any questions you have or comments as you listen to this. And hopefully it's just going to come up. And we'll take it away. So often a woman's biggest secret is her age. Back in 1985, I graduated with my degree in computer science. And 1985, well, I'll let you do the math on that. 1985 was a significant year, not just for me and my friends, but for women across the United States. That was a significant year, not just for me and my And 1985, well, I'll let you do the math on that. 1985 was a significant year, not just for me and my friends, but for women across the United States. That year, 37% of all of the undergraduate CS degrees went to women. And what that meant to me is that there were plenty of women in my classes and in the companies I worked at early in my career. But this has changed a lot. In 2011, that ratio dropped by over 50%. And as you can see, the overall number of women getting their degrees in computer science also dropped. So folks, this is a big problem. We need women to be part of the force shaping the future of tech, and they're simply not there. And what's interesting is we actually need more people, more trained computer scientists of any gender to meet the projected job needs of the future. The National Center for Women in Information Technology, using US Department of Labor statistics, they've done a study, and they say that US businesses are projecting that we need 1.2 million more computer scientists by the year 2022. And more being, that's what they project to hire in the US, as well as accommodating for expected attrition. Now, if we assume that the graduation rates of men and women in computer science stay about the same, only 39% of those needs will be filled by US-trained computer scientists. And H-1B visas are not plentiful enough to fill that gap with foreign-trained workers. So we clearly need more women, right? We need more people too, but we need more women. So women, diversity is a good thing, right? Sure, yeah. We need the balance that women, as well as people of different age, ethnicity, and so forth, bring to engineering teams so that the engineering teams will look at problems holistically and solve them for all people. And there are cautionary tales of what happens when you don't have women on your engineering teams. My friend Nora Denzel gave the keynote at the Grace Hopper Conference in 2012. And this conference is the largest conference for technical women. It's totally awesome. And in her keynote, she shared these 3 cautionary tales. The first is early voice recognition systems. A team of all men created that first system, and they calibrated it to their voices. Well, guess what happened when they tried to sell it to primarily female secretarial pools, administrative pools? It failed. And then there's the airbag. First airbag technology was developed by an all-male engineering team, and they used the height and weight of the standard adult male in their specifications. Well, the unfortunate and very tragic consequence of that was that women and young children were killed when the early airbag was deployed. And then there's access to clean water. As you probably know, over 1 billion people on our planet do not have access to reliable, clean water. And a few years back, teams went into 15 different African countries to try to solve this problem. And then teams went in afterwards to assess the impact of what they did. And what they found is the teams with women and those teams that involved women in what I'd call customer research. How is water gathered today? Would this solution work? And so forth. Those teams with women on them created solutions that were more effective and longer lasting. Now, I don't mean to imply that any of the men on these teams set out to build solutions only for other men, but you have to wonder, what would have been different if women had been on these teams? And there's also interesting information that is about how gender drives more innovation. And the National Center for Women and Information Technology released a study they did on patents. And in the software industry, what they found is that if a patent filing team had mixed gender, they were 26% more likely to create patents that would be cited than the norm for similar patents. And now, to be highly cited in the patent industry means that you're probably in the center of a citation graph like this. A lot of other patents are referring back to you, citing you, for many reasons, one of which can be that you represent a core innovation in your field. Okay? So if you have a woman or more women on your patent team, you're more likely to create, 26% more likely to create a highly cited patent. And that's in the software industry. If you, they also did the study on the hardware peripheral market, and that number jumped up to 42%. So women helped drive innovation. And so the bottom line is we need more women for this balance that they bring, for this innovative, inclusive design, and this ability to drive innovation. And speaking of the bottom line, the research group Catalyst did a study. Maybe some of you have seen this in the popular press. They did a study about the impact of women on financial performance. And the companies with the most women in their most senior leadership positions were financially more profitable, more successful, than companies with the fewest number of women. And they also looked at the Fortune 500. And those companies in the Fortune 500 that had female CEOs, they outperformed the market. Okay? So you may be wondering, where are these women? Why aren't they part of the force shaping the future of tech? Well, I have a theory of why this decline happened since I was in school. And that's the personal computer. So IBM launched the PC in 1981, the year I graduated from high school. And then Apple launched the Macintosh in 1984. And before this, there were very, very few computers in our homes, our schools, our small businesses. And young boys and young girls had pretty much the same experience with computers, right? We didn't have any. But that has changed. And computing now is affordable, pervasive, and for whatever societal reason, young boys tend to spend more time playing with computers, playing computer games, as we heard earlier today. Good thing. But they spend more time playing with computers, tinkering with the hardware, learning to code, and taking AP Computer Science in high school. And by the way, AP Computer Science, only 18% of those exams are taken by women each year. And that exactly mirrors the number of graduates we're seeing a few years down the road. So, about a year ago, I had a chance to hear Sheryl Sandberg speak. And she shared a personal story about her 7-year-old son and her 7-year-old niece. And she signed them both up to a summer day camp where they could learn how to program. And her niece was one of 5 girls out of about 50 campers, so 10%. Now, you have to understand, this is 7-year-olds, okay? First of all, 7-year-olds. This is when parents are defining and deciding what summer camp to send their kids to, not the other way around. So parents in Silicon Valley are deciding to send primarily only their boys to summer day camp to learn to code. This is called unconscious bias, and it's everywhere. And this unconscious bias that boys are going to like girls, they're going to like girls. Sorry, boys are going to like computers more than young girls will like them, leads to girls not spending as much time playing with computers, not learning to code, and if they decide to take a computer science class in college, frankly, they are intimidated. They're intimidated by their classmates, who primarily are young men who have been hacking since they were in elementary school. And what happens to those women? They opt out. Now for some good news. It's not all doom and gloom. You ready for some good news? Yeah. There are groups here in the US and around the world that are focused on educating, encouraging, and empowering girls of all ages to study and learn how to code, study STEM in school, and pursue tech careers. And there are organizations that focus on very young girls. There are organizations that focus on professional women. They're all meeting a need, and they're all helping to bring more women into this force where we need them to be helping shaping our future in tech. And there's also good news coming from universities. I'm going to tell you just about 3 who are doing a great job at building a more inclusive culture. The first is very well known by the women in tech community, and that's Harvey Mudd. This is a small engineering school in Southern California, and they had a big problem a few years ago. They only had 10% of their undergraduates in the CS department were women. And they took specific measures to get it to almost 50%. Here's what they did. To address that intimidation factor I mentioned, they now offer 2 sections of the Intro to Computer Science class. One if you have experience, one if you don't have any, okay? So the intimidation factor can be eliminated. They also give a choice, so any programming assignment in those classes, students can choose from perhaps a robotics problem or a bio problem or a physics problem, just something that's going to resonate with them, and they're not assuming one size fits all. And they also send every female CS undergrad major to this Grace Hopper conference that I mentioned, where they can be surrounded by role models and inspired to finish their studies. And it's working. Another example, a little less well known, is Carnegie Mellon University and the problem they had. In 1995, they had only 7% of their incoming freshmen declared CS majors were women. And they got that up to 42% in just 5 years. And what did they do? They worked with high schools to make their programs less focused just on boys, more gender neutral. They added or changed their admissions policy to not favor experience, but to look at potential. They added an introductory class called Computers and the Impact on Society, which turns out to be appealing to a lot of the women. And they also set up a little sister, big sister mentoring program for the girls in the department. And Carnegie Mellon points out, not only did this make it more inclusive for women, but more inclusive for all people. It was all good. And last but not least, shout out to William and Mary. Yes, any computer science students here? All right, we've got a few. So at the undergraduate level in the computer science department, 24% of your students are female. Awesome, better than that nationwide average. But really impressive is that at graduation next month, over half of your graduate degrees are going to go to women in computer science. That's all good. Yeah, that's right. Now this is my daughter, who is a senior in high school. And she's going to study computer science next year in college. I thought I was going to have to bribe her, but I didn't. And last year when we toured schools to find out where she would want to go, I, of course, would ask on every tour, what's your ratio like in the computer science department? And I heard from tour guides as well as professors we met pretty much the same answer. I don't really know the exact numbers, but it's approaching 50-50. It's great. And that's backed up from what I'm hearing in some of the news reports I read. The University of California at Berkeley announced in February of this year that for the first time ever, they have more women than men in their introductory computer science class. The ratio is changing. And I'm thrilled for my daughter, knowing that she has a really good chance of being surrounded by women in her classes and having role models as she starts her career. We may be getting back to 1985, may. Of course, until the National Center for Education Statistics reports that we have a sort of a sustained change in that ratio, we can't declare success. But I'm still excited for my daughter. And in the meantime, I'm going to celebrate every success I do see. This is the Girls of Steel first robotics team in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And this is a high school team, and they are sponsored by Carnegie Mellon's Field Robotics Center. Last month, this team of women, young women, won the Engineering Innovation Award at the Buckeye Regional Science and Robotics Fair. Yeah, pretty cool. I think that some of these girls, if not all of them, are going to be part of this force I'm talking about. And I'm also going to celebrate every time I see a photo like this come through on my Facebook feed. This is my friend's daughter, Hannah, and 3 of her classmates from the Loudoun County Academy of Science in Northern Virginia. And last month, Hannah and her classmates took top prizes in their regional science and engineering fair. And Hannah, who is second from the left, took top honors in computer science. And get this, Last weekend at the State Science and Engineering Fair, she took first place again. She is definitely part of the force. Yeah. And my ask for all of you is that because of what you're hearing here today, if you have any unconscious biases about girls not liking tech, put those aside and look for ways that you can get females in your life to try to be part of this force moving forward. You know, if you're a parent, if you have young girls in your life, are there the summer day camps to learn to code that you can send them to, or encourage them to check out that after-school robotics program, or learn to code? If you are an educator, are there things you can do to help address the intimidation factor that young women tend to feel in any STEM field? You know, Carnegie Mellon and Harvey Mudd clearly have done some great work, but every university and school is not there. And if you simply want to have great tech solutions to solve the world's problems moving forward, do what you can to have a woman in your life try tech on for size. It's not going to fit everyone, but it's got to fit more than we're seeing today. Thank you. So that was my TED Talk. This is really just a time now for all of you to ask questions or engage in a dialogue about your experiences, any questions you have about the content or what you see going on, what your personal experiences may have been, what you're doing with your daughters, who are maybe, are you encouraging them to get into tech? I don't know, just whatever people want to talk about now. It's an open time.
I'll start off with a question. So you're talking about the computer science camps, and of course we're going to summer, and I was looking at all the camps for my daughters. I have 2 girls. And It was really kind of disappointing to look at these camp websites, the computer science ones. All of the photos were littered with little boys, which no problem with little boys in the pictures, but there wasn't a single little girl in any of the advertising for any of the computer science workshops I was looking at, which I just thought was so sad. You know, speaking of unconscious bias.
It reinforces the bias.
It reinforces the bias that computer science is only for boys. And it starts so early. I was really disappointed by that. And all of the Lego robotics classes, same thing, same kind of advertising. And that's what the classes fill with. So short of canvassing all of these camps and saying, you've got to put girls on your websites, what would you suggest we do about helping with that kind of unconscious bias?
So, you know, I would actually send notes to the people, to the camps locally that you see, and recommend they get pictures of young girls because parents want to see their girls. That you don't want to send your girl to be the only girl at a camp like that. It's going to be, not many girls would appreciate that or would enjoy that. Some would, but not many. So you want to make sure you're sending your daughters where they're going to have fun. So I actually would recommend sending a quick email like, hey, what's going on? But on top of that, ignore the photos that are missing, and think about rounding up a couple of your daughter's friends and sending them all together. Just rally them together and send them off, and they're going to have a great time. I would bet. I'm wondering, has anyone seen this thing that's been going around the web? I just heard about it this week, but this Tumblr blog, all male panels. Has anyone seen this?
Yeah,
so
I saw that.
You saw that. So basically, there's someone that started a Tumblr blog. It's anonymous, and you can submit photos of events that are all men speaking. So a panel of all men, and you can go all male. I think it's allmalepanels.tumblr.com. And so basically, it's to do a little shaming around, where the heck are their women? Why aren't they there? So maybe we should start one for day camps, tech day camps. Woo! Okay, Grace, we'll talk about it later.
Other questions?
Oh, I can't reach you actually. I don't know if you need a mic.
Well, there's some people in blue jeans, so.
Can everyone, kind of on the same lines, I actually started off in engineering. I was in engineering for 3 years before I switched majors, and part of the reason I actually switched majors is actually less to do, there was actually definitely times where I didn't feel comfortable, actually even by the professors or the people that are actually managing the engineering departments, just in the sense that they weren't really welcoming. Like, you actually do feel like an outsider. Like, I wonder what also just needs to be done to make sure that, even if, of course, as women start to, like, engage into those departments, like, making sure that they're actually welcomed.
Yeah, I get it.
Encouraged.
So my daughter, who's studying computer science, I've been impressed by how much is going on to support her. She has, there are WICS chapters, it seems like, at a lot of the computer science departments, WICS being Women in Computer Science. So she has that kind of support, like social kinds of things to get together with the other women. And then she also has a mentor assigned to her who is an upperclassman, who is a female computer science major, and they get together whenever they want to, but she's been using that mentor to actually probably talk more about the business at hand, like what classes should I take, and what do you think of this professor, and those types of things, as opposed to how to succeed as a woman. But by just having that mentoring relationship, it reinforces that she belongs. So I'm hearing good news about that. I don't know if anyone graduated in the last few years with a computer science or engineering degree. Did you have that kind of support in your program?
So we had one female professor. She advised all the women in the department no matter what. And years when she advised, or years as she taught the intro courses, saw like a very significant intake of women in her department.
Interesting. Yep, so the role modeling that happened because she was teaching that intro to computer science. More women probably checked it out, stayed there if they were, I don't know if you could shop around for different classes that first week or something, or yeah, definitely. Good. All right, another question in the back. Thanks for sharing that.
Hi, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Exciting to have you here. So I recently read this really interesting Code article about, I think it was like a survey of like 100 successful female entrepreneurs. And they just asked them, like, high-level questions, like, why are you successful? What do you think? How do you think you got here? And one of the interesting takeaways I thought was interesting is that 86% were not from STEM fields. So they actually didn't have a computer science degree. And so I think, obviously, a big part of the conversation is around, having that background, and that helps you be more qualified for leadership positions. But what are your thoughts on if you are not from a traditional STEM background? Like, how can you still encourage participation in tech, saying like you still have the business skills, you still have the relevant qualifications?
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for bringing up that study, the survey. Unfortunately, what we're seeing, though, is in Silicon Valley, that computer science or engineering pedigree, I'll call it, the background is so treasured among VCs. It's the pattern matching that they do, and unfortunately that pattern matching also means that they're male, and they're probably from Stanford or MIT. It's a certain, they're looking for successes, and they're probably wearing a hoodie with a zip-up hoodie. And so that's just the reality that we are in. But it's definitely not one size fits all, and there are people breaking the mold, and there are a couple now completely female VC firms who are really focused on ignoring that pattern matching that is typically done by the male VC firms, and they're looking to expand it, the kind of people they're funding and investing in to be more women and other minorities. So I'm hearing a lot about that. So I think those things are going to help. And the patent work that I mentioned, for example, the patent filing teams who have at least one woman on them, it didn't say at all what that woman was doing. And so I don't know how much patent work you do here at Atlassian, but you don't have to be an engineer to be filing a patent. You might be an instructional designer, whatever your title was, I'm forgetting now, but yeah, something. I mean, you might get involved with the team. You might be a product manager. You might be a UX specialist. So I think that it's interesting that I don't know if I'm really answering your question, but I don't think you have to just have that strong STEM background of science, technology, engineering, or math to be participating in helping to create these solutions. I mean, the reason we want gender diversity is because there's so much proof showing that diverse teams create the right solutions for a diverse audience. And so we really want to have people approaching it from different directions, approaching that problem, creating the solution, and so forth. So I think encouraging any people, any young women to get involved with tech is a good thing. And look, I mean, hopefully you all enjoy being in tech. I certainly spent my whole career in tech, and it's a great place to be. So we definitely need more women to join the ranks, though.
So thinking back at my own teenage years, people who were wise and had good intentions gave me advice on what I should pursue as a career. And there was a side of me that wanted to specifically not do what they told me just because I was a little bit feeling rebellious. So my question is kind of, how do you avoid with the children and teenagers in your lives, how do you avoid telling them this is what you should do because this is a huge opportunity and there are going to be millions of jobs that are unfulfilled? And how do you avoid them kind of not wanting to do it because you told them it was a good idea?
I know. Oh gosh, and every teenager is different. It's a reverse psychology. Don't study computer science. It's awful. See how that works. No, but on a serious note, many of my daughter's friends from high school, are all off at different colleges now. And each one I do ask them, I said, just take one computer science class, just one. Don't worry about majoring it, but just take one because I think it's a business literacy skill for the 21st century. And we don't need everyone to have computer science degrees, but we need everyone to know a little bit about coding and what's possible with it. And to have that confidence going into whatever career they have, knowing like I took a programming class, I can feel confident as I show up in this job that I'm going to be doing. So that's one thing I do, and I'm not their mothers. I'm sure they wouldn't listen to their mothers per se as much, but given everything that I do around supporting women and advocating for women, I do encourage them. That said, I have a son who's a junior in high school, and I would love for him to study something tech as well, and he's great in math and science, and who knows what he's going to study? It's philosophy. I don't know. He's going to be a great thinker, doing something else. So I can't say that I have all the answers there because I've kind of battened 50-50 here.
Me again.
Yeah. Hello.
What do you think of the Ellen Powell jury verdict?
Yeah. So what do I think of the Ellen Powell verdict? So I actually was quoted in the New York Times the day the verdict was announced. So I was interviewed hours before. No one knew what was going to happen. And my perspective on it was that it almost didn't matter what the verdict was because it was a good thing that she had raised the topic, raised the awareness, raised the conversation. It became not just a Silicon Valley topic, it was being discussed across the United States, probably around the world for mostly, but it wasn't just a tech issue. It was well known what was going on, excuse me. And I believed that, here's the thing that bothers me is most men that I talk to who are in tech believe that their organization is a meritocracy. You get ahead by the merits of your own work. If you're successful, you'll get ahead, you'll be recognized, and all of that. But in reality, if you look at most of the tech companies, the ratio of women in the company at the lower ranks is much greater than at the upper ranks. So they aren't meritocracies, right? Something's happening because the women are either dropping out or they're not being promoted at the same rate as the men are. So most men think that they're a meritocracy, and I truly believe that they are treating men and women equally, but the data doesn't back it up. And what the Ellen Powell trial, I think, did, because it was with Kleiner Perkins, she was suing Kleiner Perkins about it, all of a sudden it became that because Kleiner Perkins is so well respected, that this meritocracy thing was like, oh, this isn't at the corners of the tech industry anymore, this gender issue. It is actually at the heartbeat. It's happening, in this very well-respected, long-standing venture capital firm. So that's what I think about it. I think it was more power. Thank you, Ellen. I was using that hashtag that day to thank her for bringing this up. It was a very brave thing she did. And I do think it's raised awareness. It is a conversation that still is happening, just what is going on with gender diversity at our organization. Oh, and I kind of hope, next time there's an all-male ski trip that someone might hear about at some tech company, they may say, hey, that's not cool, without realizing that there might be gender biases going on at their company. Or the next time there's some hanky-panky going on any kind of business trip, that someone's just going to call it for what it is, because we are all now more empowered and informed. I'll get off my soapbox now, man. Does anyone else have thoughts about Ellen Pao? Do you have thoughts yourself sometime?
No, I completely agree. I think it was just astonishing, like how much publicity there was, and like my mom, not very involved in that. Like,
She knew about it.
no, she's kind of she's been a great role model, and she like works raised by a single mom, and she does well in law, but she does not involve in tech, and so she was like, oh, it's all the case. So to me, that was kind of interesting. Like people have seen it, people are talking about it. I think it was unfortunate. I don't know the answer to, and I wonder how would things been different if the verdict was yes, there was sexual harassment. Because I wonder from a legal standpoint, from a conversation standpoint. So yeah, I hope women come forward. And I don't have a definite answer to that.
Yeah. It's a work in progress, maybe.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead,
So
Grace.
Karen, you talked a lot about the problem with women coming into tech, but there's a lot of discussion right now about the pipeline being leaky at both ends. In fact, for the few women that are going into tech now, there's a 56% drop-off right in the middle of their careers. What could we be doing different there to keep more of these women in tech and continue to bring in net new women into tech?
Yeah, that leaky pipeline, I didn't have time to talk about it in my TEDx talk at all, but it's this whole, other area of exploring. I hadn't heard 56%. I just read a survey that said 48% of women over the age of 35 who are in tech drop out. And they don't go become, independently wealthy or become a stay-at-home mom. They are just switching careers. So I heard 48% of women over 35, age 35. So maybe it's, the study you're quoting is probably just different, looking at a wider age of the women. So yeah, the leaky pipeline's a problem. The thing is not one size fits all. So I think that companies need to have, to understand where their pipeline is leaky and start looking very closely at what they can be doing on an individual basis to support their women. Like, is it leaky, in the very, very leaky right after a woman comes back from a maternity leave, for example? Well, then you have to look at what your benefits are there and what can be done to maybe keep them around. The law firm representing Ellen Pao actually just announced they are extending their maternity leave policy from something like, it was already pretty good, like 14 weeks to 20 weeks. So that's one example. But if that's not where it's leaky, then that wouldn't help, right? So you have to really understand what's going on. I don't know, do you have other ideas? Anyone have ideas? How about here at Atlassian? Is it leaky at all? Yeah?
I don't know if this directly addresses the leaky pipe, but one of the things that I think we could do a better job of is encouraging cross-pollination. So women who work in a tech company, in our company, who might want to learn to code, like we need to encourage more
Career skill development,
one of the smartest women I know in tech started as an information developer, and now she's working on doing artificial intelligence on the Watson project. So,
nice.
Making sure that we have those opportunities available and encourage that.
So skill development classes and probably just support too, that people can learn to do this. Great suggestion.
And just off the maternity leave subject, I don't think yes, we certainly need to improve the maternity leave policies in the U.S. in general as compared with other countries. Most companies have nothing to offer in the U.S., which I think is a sad statement for us as a country. And the second is, I think it's going beyond the benefits, it's a cultural education problem. So as an example for me, and I've told this story before here, when I was at Microsoft and I was about to have my first child, I was an evangelist. I was on the road a bit. I was going to slow down somewhat with my first child. And I was working a lot with partners and customers and, of course, my Microsoft colleagues. And out of the blue, as the bump was showing, obviously I was pregnant. I was explaining I was pregnant to people. Male colleagues left and right, and even female colleagues left and right, and those customers and partners, unsolicited, they were in a panic for me. Oh my God, you must be quitting your job, right? How could you possibly keep your job if you're going to have a baby? That's not right. You don't want someone else raising your child. And yet not a single person, not a single colleague of my husband or friend of my husband said, you're going to quit your job, are you?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want someone else raising your child. And, of course, there was always the question of how much maternity leave are you going to take? No one asked my husband how much leave are you going to take. Not a single person.
Yeah.
So I think things like that.
Education. So I'll share another story about travel as a new mom. In the past, I had someone reporting to me on the team, and he had a promotion. The new headcount, and it was a higher level than the rest of his team members, and he was thinking about, who should he open up the headcount and get resumes from outside, or should he look on his team and promote someone? And I said, well, why aren't you talking to this woman who's the highest performer in your team? Don't you think she's ready for that position? And he said, oh, no, she has young children at home. She would not want all the travel that goes along with that job. So his unconscious bias was based on his experience and that his wife would not have wanted to travel as a young child. And I told him, I said, that's not your decision to make. If you think she's the right person, go talk to her about it. If she doesn't want to travel, she'll let you know. But, I think she deserves it, and it sounds like you do too. So he went and talked to her, and sure enough, I'm ready, I want to go. And she had, whatever her personal situation at home was, it was just fine to have more travel. She was able to handle it. So I think that we all have to question our biases, and we can't assume that we know the right answer for a pregnant, soon-to-be mom, or a working mom, or any woman for that matter, about what the job opportunities are. You have to be kind of gender blind about that, and not just gender blind in general about any differences.
And the child care issue is for both men and women. We have colleagues in here who have children, both men and women. And I know that since I've been in a leadership position, I've spent plenty of time talking to male colleagues and potential hires who've talked about the challenges of traveling with children. And those are male colleagues or candidates who specifically say, I want to make sure I'm not traveling too much because my children matter to me and I don't want to be traveling too much.
Nice. Yep. Nice. Excellent. So I'll ask the question since I'm the outsider here, but are there other things you'd like to see Atlassian doing to support women so there isn't a leaky pipeline here? Anyone have ideas? We heard the one about encouraging women to code if they are so inclined.
I would love to see more women in management.
Uh-huh.
I think we need a lot more women on that executive level.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for saying that. Anyone else? Well, think about it. Maybe it can be individual conversations with Grace or something afterwards, or you can, if you have ideas for programs.
So with the challenges that you've been talking about, and in all of these sessions, the thing that I always like to do is to talk about what each of us could actually be actively doing to contribute to that change, the positive change that we need to see here. Mm-hmm. It can't be just one person advocating. It has to be every single person in this room. So what would you suggest people consider doing so that we're winning this inch by inch?
Yeah. Yep. So my call to action at the end of the talk, I'll just reiterate because I believe we all can play a role, and that is, if you are a parent or an aunt or an uncle, and there are young girls in your life, is encourage them. I mean, if you're buying gifts, think about Goldie Blocks or some of the girl-friendly engineering toys that are out there, or just plain old Legos, something to encourage them to learn and get hooked on building things. And send them to the tech camps and so forth. If you don't have young children in your life, young girls, but you have that opportunity to have any touch points with students who are graduating from high school or something, and just let them know about what your your job is like, how fun it is to work in tech, what you like about it, and encourage them to just take one computer science course. You might make some differences there. I really think there are other cultures where we don't have the same gender imbalance in the computer science field. Turkey, Cuba, India, China. All of these are, if you look at the computer science programs, they're more 50-50 in their universities. Cuba, okay? So it's all based on those, it's the family, it's the role models, it's the encouragement, it's the dads or moms telling the little girls, yeah, go be an engineer, you can do that, as opposed to, I don't think you're going to be very good at it, or whatever that conversation might look at. So this isn't something that has to be, it's something that's wrong with our society, I think, that we aren't encouraging more women, young women, to be techie. And unfortunately, and I don't think Atlassian is one of these companies, but unfortunately, with just so many young men entering this field, we get that programmer culture that becomes self-fulfilling. The women don't want to be a part of that programmer culture, so they don't even want to go into the field, and they just drop out and drop out and drop out. So I do think that we all can, the call to action is, be positive about what tech can do for young women, encourage them, assume they can do just as much as the young men. Yeah.
And I'll add to that too, like each of you are in tech now. All of you can be mentors to someone who is considering and hedging, whether they want to try tech. I spent some time last week with someone's sister. She just finished a mathematics degree in college, wasn't sure if tech was for her. Obviously, it heard some of the challenges that we have here. I spent, probably a good half hour with her just talking through different options, and the fact that career-wise, for me, I've had a phenomenal career working in different areas in tech. I would not have had the luxury of being both an engineer, a marketing person, a pre-sales engineer, evangelist, now a leader in evangelism, in any other industry. It has been an amazing ride for me. So, I can't encourage that enough. Is talk to other people, especially young girls, especially people coming out of college, and share the stories about just the vast opportunity of being in tech. It's an amazing field to be in.
Yeah, thank you. Does anyone here volunteer through any, Girls Who Code or Girls Coding Camp or robotics type stuff, or no? Is that of interest to anyone to get involved with that? Because there's lots of opportunity. Lots of opportunity. Contacting your local high school or alumni organization. One thing I do for my alumni organization is I mentor a woman who's she's already decided to study computer science, but she's a senior and is just about to launch her career. And so I just help her navigate what it's like to get started in tech, and even like how to, I make them very uncomfortable, everyone. I'm like, and you're going to negotiate that first job offer, because women tend not to negotiate. And I don't care, even if you only get, $500 extra to help pay off your student loans, that's what you're going to get. And the next time you negotiate, it's going to be a little bit easier. So there's so many ways you have to, I could go through a long litany of ways you can get involved, but I think each person needs to find what they kind of resonates with them, whether that, you'd like to help out with robotics because you like building that kind of thing, or if there's an opportunity through a high school in your neighborhood or a middle school or something like that, or through your alumni organization. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm curious if you think it's a regional thing too, because for example, I'm not from here. This is very much so a bubble, and I'm from Arizona, where tech people are like, "What's that?" It's not very big there, and it wasn't offered in my high school. I'm pretty sure it's still not. Is this something high schools are starting to offer? Because personally, when I hit college, I didn't even know that was an option. It wasn't on my radar at all.
Yeah. I don't know what the. It's a good question. Are more high schools starting to offer computer science curriculum, after-school robotics, and so forth? I don't know what those numbers are. Gosh, I hope so. That's all I can say. We are definitely in a bubble here, but we're not. It's not like we have more kids going to the robotics summer camps. More women, young girls as a proportion of the ratio. It's not 50-50 here either. So yeah, while we're in a bubble, and while most of our parents should be able to see, what tech can do for a young child and the potential career, if that's important to what they're trying to help encourage their child to do moving forward. It's just like, it's so relevant here. It's so obvious what the benefits are to a tech career that you'd think you'd see more, but it's not. So anyway, I'm kind of all over the place. Yeah, we're in a bubble, but I don't think we're alone. I think there are other places across the United States where they can see that tech is important, and they have these AP computer science classes and so forth, but certainly not every school has them. I think Obama's like trying to encourage more schools to offer computer science and programming, and that one day, what's the program? 1 hour of code, hour of code, hour of. Yeah, no, but hour of code is a whole nother thing. Yeah, it's part of it. Okay. Okay.
Two engineers and some of the business people working out of this office.
Oh, cool. Oh, awesome. Awesome. So that might be a great way to get involved with other Atlassian people as well as give back to the initiative. But that hour of code, that's not by gender, but that is just to encourage more, because we need 1.2 million more computer scientists by 2022. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I think that one of the things that makes this whole like gender bias thing so difficult in the workplace is that because it's an unconscious bias, that both it's like very subtle, like when you see it, that you're never quite sure if that's what's really going on, but then also from the person that may be exuding that they don't, it's like not bad intention at all, and they might not know that they're doing it. I just was wondering, in your experience, like what's the best way to kind of address that if you see something happening or you are experiencing it, like just like be very direct and like say like what's that, or is it like, yeah, I guess that's kind of
Yeah. Okay, so a couple things. So there are companies doing unconscious bias training. They're bringing training in, just like you would do any kind of anti-harassment training for your workforce. So that's going on to like raise awareness of the unconscious biases we all have. We all have them, and it's not just about gender issues. It might also be you're assuming that blind people can't do certain things or whatever that might look like. So that's going on. The most powerful thing, though, I think that I've found is no one can say you're wrong if you say, this is how I feel. I'm offended when you say that. I don't like it when you say that. I feel like that's demeaning towards women. I think it's pejorative. It's, I feel this way when you say that. And so I would encourage you, if you're seeing some sort of discriminatory behavior, even though it seems sort of small, it's okay to say, I don't feel comfortable when you say that. As long as you feel comfortable having that conversation. I'm consulting with a company, I won't say who it is, but talking to some of the women there, and they are on this anti-nagging campaign. So there's a lot of phraseology going on of like, the program managers are going to be nagging us again. And nagging for them seemed like a very demeaning, feminine kind of trait that they were associating maybe with their mothers. I don't know, but they're like, no more nagging. Like they want to ban that word. And so they're like, actively talking about it and encouraging that word to be just eliminated, so that whenever it's used, people are like, oh, no, we don't use that word anymore, because they found it demeaning. So if there are, that word might not otherwise, like some people are like, well, that's not a feminine thing, that's not anti-women, but for this group of women it was, and so they just have started that conversation. So I think it's raising the awareness is the important thing in having the conversations. Hopefully that helps you. Yeah? Can you imagine having that kind of conversation? Awesome. Good.
All right. Well, with that, we have snacks and wine and other delicious things outside.
Great.
And let's give Karen a warm thank you.
Thank you.